seek you out, flay you alive. One more word and you won't survive. And I'm not scared of your stolen power. See right through you any hour. I won't soothe your pain. I won't ease your strain. You'll be waiting in vain. I got nothing for you to gain. I'm taking it slow, feeding my flame, shoveling the cards of your game. And just in time, in the right place, suddenly I will play my ace. I won't soothe your pain. I won't ease your strain. You'll be waiting in vain. I got nothing for you to gain. Eyes on fire, your spine is so ablaze, feeling any foe in my gaze. And just in time, in the right place, steadily emerging with grace. Failing any foe in my gaze. Steadily emerging with grace. Failing any foe in my gaze. Steadily emerging with grace.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Thank you.
Last year, from my doctor, I found out that I have SUD innovation syndrome. I have SUD innovation syndrome. I discovered that I'm not alone. There are hundreds of people with SUDS all throughout California. Once I discovered that there were others like me out there, I began a quest and searched far and wide to see if there was a cure. Eventually, I discovered that the treatment for SUDS was right here in this medical building. That looks eerily like a Department of Healthcare Services building. Hi, I heard you can seek treatment for SUDS here.
And?
Well, I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, you'll need to take the ATAMs.
I'm sorry, do you mean the ASAM?
No, it's the ATAMs. It's the American Manual for SUDS assessments. It's, I'll admit, it's a very patriotic manual.
Is that a real manual?
As far as I know, but I could have potentially made it up.
Okay. Do you take Medi-Cal?
We do, but only on Saturdays.
But it says here you're closed on Saturdays.
We are.
Okay, well, why don't you give it to me?
I mean, I could, if you really want it.
Thank you. Excuse me, why do you need to know about my frequency of trips to Starbucks, and if I have a sleeping bag stored under my desk, and if I wake up in the middle of the night screaming opioids?
That last one might be relevant. Just give me the form. All right. So I'll file this away for you. So where's the trash? Here. Dr. Bardwaj is, he'll be ready to take you in just a couple minutes. Just step right through that door, and he'll be in.
12 seconds later.
What are you doing here? You're Dr. Bardwaj? Weren't you just in the other room?
Yep. I was. Go ahead and take a seat. All right, lesson 1, stop asking questions. Innovation dies when people stop questioning the status quo.
You mean questions like, why are you wearing shorts?
Lesson 2. Humor has no place at work. There's occasionally smiling allowed. Holidays mostly. Definitely not Arbor Day.
Okay, whatever. What's going on with my assessment?
Oh, yeah, that's right. This thing. Well, it looks like you've got a pretty bad case of SUDS, and I do think with the right treatment plan, we'll be able to attack your SUD innovation syndrome at its source with BIS.
What's BIS?
It's button seat syndrome, not to be confused with IBS, which it's a little bit different. Anyway, the longer you stay in this field, the more you're prone to burnout, which it looks like you're perfectly ready for. My job here will be a cinch.
I doubt it. I love my SUDS.
Well then, enlighten us, Four Eyes.
I'm not wearing any glasses. You are.
Yeah, but I'm not talking to myself. Am I? Wait, am I?
2 hours later.
Tell me about addiction.
Addiction is a chronic relapsing disease. It's a disease of the brain, but treatment is effective and individuals can achieve long-term recovery.
Okay, so let me just get this straight so we're both on the same page. What you're saying is that addiction is amazing,
No.
and people with addiction deserve to be locked up,
No.
and stigma is magnificent.
No, I didn't say any of that.
Well, that's kind of the point, because misinformation, it's one of the better cures for SUDS.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not sure if I do either, but I am a termite curator, which it has to count for something.
Yeah, it really doesn't count for anything.
Hey, rabble rouser!
Jennifer, what are you doing here?
I'm here to help you.
Great, I could use some serious help.
I understand that you've been reaching out to some really unsavory characters to try to get treatment for your SUDS, and I just thought I could maybe help.
I really do need some help. I mean, I've just been so tired, and I just don't know. Maybe I don't want this SUDS anymore.
Well, I hate to break it to you. It's not curable, and so you're going to have to just embrace it. And in my honest opinion, you got to suck it up, Buttercup. There's work to be done. There's people to be helped. And I'm afraid to tell you this, but there's more money coming your way, and so your innovation work has a lot more to go.
Okay, all right. I really, really needed this. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for just randomly appearing in this room.
Well, you know, I try to be everywhere at all times.
Awesome. Thank you.
1 long, angry line later.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm not listening to you at all anymore. You're a complete weirdo, first of all. And second of all, nobody celebrates Arbor Day anymore, which is kind of sad. Third of all, we're going to show you at the Department of Healthcare Services and our providers and partners that you're totally wrong. So, bam, you're a quack.
Whoa, that really hurts. Never really expected to be called that this early in my medical career, particularly since I've never gone to medical school. Anyway, want to see my termite collection? This one, well, I think you might actually like this because
No.
I've got it's a full collection. I'm actually one of the leading collectors in the country.
You're a loser.
This one is Fred.
That's
I think
what-
Fred and you
yeah.
you guys have kind of similar vibes going. I think you might like Fred. But if not, if opposites, if that's kind of your thing,
Yeah.
then I would say Sam right here.
I'm done. Go. Get rid of your termites.
All right, well, can't win them all.
Man, that was a strange dream. My SUDS must be acting up again.
Please welcome the Division Chief of the Substance Use Disorder Compliance Division and your host for the 2018 SUD Statewide Conference, Marlise Perez.
Awesome. Welcome. So excited to see all your bright, smiley faces and to welcome you officially to our 2018 SUD conference. And if you notice, this year I'm actually wearing glasses because last year I forgot these and couldn't see my screen at all. It was terrible. So anyway, I think this is a sign of age, but also some wisdom that I remembered them. So welcome, and I do just want to take a moment. Where is Ivan? There he is, Ivan right there. Ivan Bardwaj, Dr. Bardwaj. Dr. Bardwaj, I got one of these hats for you too. And Wahida, where's Wahida? There she is. Just thank you guys so much. We have so much fun putting this together for you. And just so you know, Ivan, I've told him he cannot wear shorts anymore in the office. Great. Well, welcome. We have so many things crammed into the next 3 days. And I know one of the things I love to hear you talk about is, Marlise, there's so many workshops I want to go to at the same time. How am I going to do this? And I do want to let you know that we have all the presentations from our workshops will be posted up on the website. So if either you don't want to take notes at the time or you want to go back and look at it later, those are available for you. We are going to be talking about tremendous things that are going on across California. We're going to be hitting on a lot of the DMC ODS. We're going to be talking about the ED Bridge program, which is part of our California Medication-Assisted Treatment Expansion Project. We're going to be, of course, talking about the opioid epidemic, the impact on California, and also where we are going in California with this epidemic. We're going to be hearing from our federal partners at CMS, our Medicaid authority, and we're also going to be bridging into a topic that I'm so excited about, that we have spoken about in lip service, but not really in actually demonstrating. We're going to talk about the role of faith and recovery. So those are some of our plenary topics, not to mention we have, about 35 different workshops for you. So if you do not leave this conference with all the latest information or something new, I'm guessing that you're probably sleeping. I do want to take just a moment also to get a few housekeeping items out of the way and to thank our incredible vendors. They're out in the hallway there. And if you haven't had a chance, please go by and visit them. In your packets, there's like a little card. It kind of looks like a bingo card. And they will stamp that you have seen them. And then at the end, you will have an opportunity to turn those in. And we will pull a winner, and that winner will receive a free conference registration for next year. So if you want to play along, you have that opportunity. And then also, on your name tags, you'll see a little code here. And if you have signed up to get CEUs, my team is going to be in the back here or in all the workshops. They're just going to scan you in. And that way we know that you have attended the session, and then they'll scan you on the way out. If you are not receiving CEUs, you don't have to be scanned unless you want to be, but you don't need to. Great, so we do have, like I mentioned, we have a lot of information, but above all, I really want you to just take this time to enjoy yourself. This profession is extremely challenging. You folks put in a lot of hard work throughout the year, so we really want you to have some fun. And so we're going to have built in some fun for you, but also it's really a great opportunity to network, learn about what your fellow either counties are doing or those clinicians, but to really take some time to really enjoy yourself and just take a little breather. Oops, oh no, I can't go backwards. AV guy, help. This thing only goes forward, which I think there's some hidden meaning to. Oh, well, part of my map is missing, that's why. All right, see this invisible map? This map is gorgeous, and I'm sure Darren's going to have one in his presentation, but we are all extraordinarily familiar with the Drug Medi-Cal Organized Delivery System waiver. And so, oopsie, now I swear I'm not touching it. Okay, awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to play, like hands up, we're going to play a little game. And so what I want you to do is I'm going to be talking about a few topics. about things that we have been involved in California. So if you're familiar with this, if you're involved with this, if you play a role, I want you to either clap or shout out, okay? So the first one here with my invisible map is the Drug Medi-Cal Organized Delivery System. So who's involved with this? All right, it's pretty good. Okay, how about this one? Hey, Sam. Okay. Your hands are gonna get tired with this game. How about this? Impact of marijuana, recreational, medical. Just because you're clapping doesn't mean you approve of it, just so you know. I'll talk to you guys over there later. How about the hub and spoke system? Okay. All right, what about prevention activities? Woohoo, prevention, it's in the house. DUI. All right, what about alcohol? My gosh, here we go. Alcohol gets so put in the corner, does it not? I mean, we talk about all these other drugs, and this one here is the most evident. All right, next one. DHCS, who's involved with DHCS? That's good, I hear some positive. I don't hear any booing, that's a good positive sign. Methamphetamines, woo! I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but this meth is really, unfortunately, resurging in California. You're going to hear a little bit about this over the next few days. Incidental medical services. Natalie, I want you to really shout out here. Come on, girl. All right, so this brings me to this slide. So I want to thank you for playing my little game there, but it really had a point. There is a real negative impact of having SUD innovation syndrome. And so this picture here is drawn by my 8-year-old Triesta, and some of you have seen pictures and videos of her in the past. And I asked her just to draw a picture of sad people in an office setting. And so you'll see here, it's kind of funny, this one on the far left, this is not my life. That person's crying in their cubicle. I don't really know what the person in the middle is doing. I think they're just having a little mental meltdown. And then the one on the far right just says sadness. And this is a really important topic. I feel you're all givers, else you wouldn't be in this field. But sometimes, you know, we aren't given to. And sometimes, I know even myself, I feel like all three of these people at some point. And then I'll go a little further, and sometimes you may feel alone, because this work is very tiring, it's very difficult. You're constantly battling so many different fronts. So there is a negative impact of SUDS that I do want to recognize. But I also want to recognize, oopsie, I forgot my other slide's the next one. Don't worry, AV guy, he's been with me for years. But I do want to recognize that in those really difficult times, that you really, really need to find what motivates you. And so for the next few minutes, I could spend talking about all these great things that we're doing, which you'll hear about. You're going to hear about all the different programs we're standing up. You're going to hear about the latest trends, evidence-based practices. But for a moment, I really just want to stop and talk about you, because I don't think we do enough of that. And I want to encourage you, and I also want to just talk to you a little bit about me and how I have dealt with this. And so I often talk to my staff about what motivates you. Why are you in this field? There are countless other things you could be doing. And so really taking that time, and if you don't automatically have that answer, I would encourage you over the next few days to really stop and ponder that. Because this field is tough. If I would have known how tough this field was, I don't know that I would have gotten into it. We have all these external conditions. I'm really lately battling against stigma. I've just personally decided I'm just going to take on stigma. I'm just like going to be out there in the land of the forest with my little machete, and I'm just going to be hitting at stigma all year long. We hit against NIMBY, Not in my backyard. Man, that treatment stuff is great, but over there. Just don't have it anywhere near me. Then, of course, we have the individuals that we want to serve. They are very complex. Relapse is a part of this disease. We have comorbidity. We have complex needs. Now we have the beauty of recreational marijuana to add to an already complex field here in California. And then for our amazing providers and partners, our funding streams in California, woo, if that isn't complicated. I'm very fortunate I get to go to other states, and they're like, tell us how your Medi-Cal system works. You're Medicaid. I'm like, ooh, do you have like an hour? This is going to take a little bit. And that's just talking about government funding, not just insurance. I mean, our easiest folks are really the private pay. They come up and they pay money and they walk out. That's much easier than most of the funding streams we ask you folks to work with. And then, of course, there's the lovely government oversight. You get to contend with us all the time for licensing or monitoring. And then we get down to the actual coordination of the services. Well, how do we share data? How do we share information? How do we get the information we need? What about this assessment? We have the system overlaps, case management. Lock the doors, I think people are gonna run out, okay? Why would anyone want to do this work? It's all quiet. You're all scratching your head. I never really thought about that. You have to know this. Else, I'm not going to see your little bright, smiley face next year. You have to know what motivates you. And so for me, what motivates me, and I've talked a little bit about this in my past presentations, one thing that motivates me is my faith. I feel that I was just put here to do this work. I don't have any experience with addiction. I don't have anyone in my family that has addiction. And I've also publicly stated this before. I personally thought it was a moral failing before I entered this field. So I know that I am placed here for a reason. But also what motivates me, I have 4 people in my life that really motivate me, and they're on different pathways on their journey to recovery. They're either at the starting blocks or the end blocks. And those 4 people, when I'm really having a tough day, really motivate me. And so this last year, we're humdrumming along. My team and I, we were extraordinarily busy. And then in December, one of our team, he passes away suddenly. He was literally, I talked to him that morning. And we actually were dedicating this conference to Jeff. It was interesting when I talked to him that morning because he was doing some fabulous work. We were talking in the break room, and I said, Jeff, I'm just so excited about this work you've done. And he says, yeah, Marlise, that's great. And I am excited about that, but gosh, I'm not getting to this over here. I need more time. I need more time. I said, but Jeff, it's okay. You're doing just fabulous things. I didn't know then Jeff really wasn't going to have any more time. And I'm going to tell you, it rocked our team. And it was really hard. And as the leader, I was like, man, you don't get trained for this. You don't get trained for walking your team through grief. Well, you yourself are just at that pit. And I was talking to one of my friends, and they said, Marlise, that's why you have your faith. And we walked through it, and we walked through it together. And I remember talking to one of my team, and I said, gosh, this is tough. But what do our providers face every day? I've seen people that they serve that don't come back to their doors. And I know you folks face this all the time. And so I just want to really, really encourage you, like I said, over these next few days, is to really take some time and to think about this. And if you already know, I really hope that our time together re-energizes you and reminds you about why you're in this field. because there's a real positive impact of SETIS. Now, I know a lot of you probably don't walk old ladies with curlers in the hair across their street. But this is what my daughter really sees in helping people. But what I love about it is she says here, "You made my day that I could help you." And so with that, once again, I'm really, really excited that you're here. I really hope that you just glean as much as you can, that you really just bottle it up, and then once again, that you really just take some time to just figure out why you're here, why you're in this field. But before I leave the stage, I do just want to give you a personal round of applause for all of your work, all of your efforts. It is incredible to be able to be in this state, and you're going to hear a lot about how we're leading the nation with this effort. And so I just personally want to thank you for everything that you've done. All right, oh, it's me again. Okay, so you're gonna see me all the time. So I have the pleasure, and Michelle just held up a sign, I have 5 minutes to introduce Dr. Darren Urata, so this is gonna be exciting. Darren's like, oh no. So Darren, if those of you that have not had the fortunate opportunity to work with Dr. Urata, he is with the University of California of Los Angeles with the Integrated Substance Abuse Programs. And so Darren and I actually celebrate 17 years together in this field. We were Prop 36 babies. Anybody remember Prop 36? Woohoo! Prop 36. And so when we met, I was an analyst with the department, and Darren was kind of, I call him an underling, but he was an understudy of Dr. Doug Longshore and Dr. Rick Rawson. And now he is out leading the way. He does for us our Drug Medi-Cal Organized Delivery System waiver, our California Hub and Spoke System waiver, and a myriad of other projects. But before he comes up, I'm going to tell you a little funny story about Darren. So one of the years I did some walk-up music for all the presenters. I embarrassed them and did some walk-up music. And so he says to me, "Hey, Marlise, this year at the conference, can you do my walk-up music?" I said, Darren, we're not going to do walk-up music. And he says, no, I want you to play Weird Science. And I'm like, you want me to play Weird Science? So I said, yeah, we're not doing walk-up music, Darren. But anyway, so don't worry, I'm not going to play it. But I do want to welcome to the stage Dr. Darren Urata.
That's not the way I remember the conversation, but okay. Thank you, Marlise. Oh, I thought my notes, great, okay, thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for the introduction. I didn't know it, but I'm going to build a little bit on what Marlise said. Just real quick, since I'm all into data, I have to collect some data with this many people all in the room. So how many of you are working in treatment or prevention, or you work for the county, or you're a counselor, or treatment? Okay, pretty much everybody. That's a no-brainer. Okay, now how many, wait, those of you had your hands up. Now, how many of those of you with your hands up got into this field for the money? Oh, what? Nobody? Not a single? Okay, good. If you do have your hand up, I got bad news for you. Ask your neighbor. So my takeaway from this then is that if you're not in it for the money, that you're here because you believe in what you're doing. You believe that what you're doing is having an impact, you're helping people, and that's what's important. That's what gets you up in the morning, right? And that's what drives this field, because it's certainly not driven by paychecks. It's nice to get paid, but they're not big enough. So if that's the case, then I think it's incredibly important for us to be able to give you that information, to know whether what you're doing is making a difference. And especially with all of this innovation that's going on, which Marlise mentioned is difficult, so as I look for the clicker. Did you walk off with the clicker? Oh, this is a clicker? Sorry, that's okay. This would. PhD. Yeah, I know. That's what my wife says all the time. So. You went to school for how long? All right, so it's incredibly important for us to know. So all those people, I would go back, but now I can't go back, and you know. All the people that were on the slide previous are dedicated to trying to answer that question. Is what we're doing making a difference? Is it working? If it is working, then I think it's important for this field to know it, and if it's not, then I think that's also important so we can make changes to try to fix it. This brings us to the question, is it worth it? With all of the things, the new regulations and the requirements and the trainings you have to go to, learning ASAM criteria, it's difficult, right? And so if it's not making a difference and moving us forward, then you'd probably just rather be left alone with your clients so you could, do treatment, right? But hopefully it is working. That's what we're here to talk about today, and that's why I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you. We often turn in reports and it goes off on a website, and a lot of people don't read it, but we I think need to do better at getting back to you, so you can use that as a motivation to know that what you're doing is having effect. So today I want to talk about the three projects that Marlies talked about, or Hub and Spoke Tribal Needs Assessment, and Drug Medi-Cal Organized Delivery System. And I brought a special colleague today that I usually just keep in my brain. It's the voice that talks to me. His name is, he's Skeptical Chihuahua. Usually I keep him to myself. He doubts everything, like he's been with me forever. I don't know exactly why he's a Chihuahua. Next time I talk to him, I'll ask him. All right, so Hub and Spoke evaluation. It's going to kind of be a fire hose of information. So backing up for a second, the challenge of reaching people with substance use disorders. As you've probably heard in some presentation, other presentations, about 90% of people who need treatment don't receive it. And this is from a survey that SAMHSA does every year, and every year they come up with the same result. Interestingly, about 95% of them don't feel like they need treatment, and that's why they're not getting treatment. So these are people who aren't generally going to walk through our treatment doors, and so the question is, well, how do we reach them? They need treatment, but they're not going to come in. One answer is that 85% of Americans have contact with the healthcare system every year. So that's where we can reach them. So you've probably heard a lot about integration and coordination. This is why we need to do it. And the Hub and Spoke system is in that same spirit. So if people are going to healthcare, let's connect with them there. Let's see if we can get them medication-assisted treatment there, because we really need to reach that other 95%. All right, so Chihuahua's back. Come on, primary care isn't going to sign up for this. Well, we've probably heard a lot about, work with health centers and stuff for years now, at least we've been saying it. And it's been very difficult, right? Because they're very busy, a different culture. So they don't always do it. And now that I think about it, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Actually, I had to touch the screen to make that play. But this is a video that was put together by a colleague of mine that actually shows the spokes appearing. If anybody can find the play button. That's okay. If it were running, what you would see is that 129, thank you very much, thanks guys. We're now up to 129 different spokes that have signed up for the Hub and Spoke system to provide buprenorphine to people with opioid use disorder. So it's really been amazing. Now the skeptical Chihuahua would say, well, all right, you've got buildings, you've signed up health centers, but what about patients? You got those? Well, actually we do. So that red line is where the Hub and Spoke started. The baseline was before, nothing was happening, and it was a little bit of a slow ramp up at first, a lot of things going on to try to set up a system, and now we're seeing that it go up. Of course, we'd all like it to go up, as fast as possible, but it's a pretty good start. This is actively providing waivered providers per month. That's the darker blue part. The upper part is waivered providers who are not yet prescribing, so that's also heading in the right direction. We'd like to see some of the ones who aren't prescribing yet get there, and part of that is we're learning from surveys is confidence and the need for mentorship. So once doctors do prescribe buprenorphine a couple of times, they find out it's not that difficult. There's more difficult things that they do. But they need to get over that hump. So you'll hear a lot about increasing efforts for mentorship in the years to come, well, not in the years to come, but in months to come. There's also, we're struggling with the stigma, especially in primary care, communication and coordination between the hubs and spokes, pharmacies, basically everything that you would expect when you're trying to all of a sudden set up a huge system all at once. Up next, we at UCLA are going to be doing provider and patient interviews and moving into working with emergency rooms, and Dr. Andrew Herring, I believe, will be speaking tomorrow about that. Tribal needs assessment. These are opioid overdose deaths for different race and ethnicities: white, black, Latino, Asian, and then that's Native American. So I don't know any better way to put it succinctly than that. We need to do something about this. So right now, just a little bit of background was provided to me by USC. I don't know if Claridina Soto is here. In California, there's about 750,000 American Indians and Alaskan Natives. That's more than any other state. We have more urban American Indians than any other state. And there's over 100 federally recognized tribes and reservations and rancherias. So I'm learning about this stuff as I go too. We're doing tribal needs assessment being led by Dr. Claridina Soto. Claridina, are you in here? Ah, there she is. All right, thank you. She's wonderful, and she's put together a fantastic team. You can see here CUI, CRIB. I didn't know any of these acronyms before a few months ago, but we should all learn them. UAII, Northern California Indian Development Council, and Sonoma County Indian Health Project. They're great, and they've been going out and talking to people, doing focus groups all over the state. Preliminary things that have come up so far: heroin, prescription pills, meth, as Marlise mentioned, and alcohol. There's a need for in-community residential treatment and sober living after people get out into treatment to transition them into the community. And one thing that Dr. Soto mentioned that really struck me is that she's been doing this kind of research, a lot of it in tobacco for a while, for years, and she said this is the first time that the community is actually reaching out to the research teams and calling and say, hey, can you do a focus group in our community, because we really want to talk about this. So it's a huge problem, and we look forward to continuing to work with her on that. Drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system. It sounded like from the previous applause that you guys are pretty much familiar with this. My map didn't work either. It's something about the map. But you'll have to take our word for it. 97% of the population is covered by this. I covered it. I copied Marlise's map. Okay, he's back. He's saying, I bet this has no effect on access. He's not actually that far off, and it actually is going up. It's trending up since that red line is where things started. What we're finding is that it's not so much like flipping a switch. It's more of a process or a ramping up as people build out their organized delivery systems. And if you dig deeper before the Chihuahua gets too happy, we actually do find a pretty large increase in residential treatment. So that's exciting to see. That was one of the new benefits. And this isn't just people who are now billing to Drug Medi-Cal for residential. This is actually, there are more people than there were just under the previous funding in residential. So that's exciting. All right, more residential. Well, but is it the right level of treatment? Well, that's a fair question. It's expensive. We want to make sure that people are getting what they're supposed to get. This, for the first time, is data that we, or you guys actually, are collecting on ASAM level of care, assessments, and then what they actually get referred to. And then our next step will be to track them over time when they actually get into treatment. But about 90% of people are actually getting the level of care that they're being assessed at. Where they're getting something different, it's kind of a split between clinical judgment, missing data, and a patient preference. So, and generally, if they don't get what was indicated, they get a lower level of care. There was also, the level of care isn't available. All right, fine. Once they get there, I bet they don't like their treatment. See, he's very negative. I got to talk to this Chihuahua. I had fun with transitions. That one's called origami. I'm Japanese. What are you going to do? All right. These are survey results from about 9,000 surveys that were done last November, the treatment perception surveys. So this is actual clients in treatment, and we were asking them to rate their treatment on 14 different places. Now, when you look at individual treatment providers, it actually differs a little bit more, but when you average it over the state, it all comes out to about 4.3, 4.4. So pretty good. That's on a 5-point scale, so almost as high as they can go. So people are at least reporting that they're pretty happy with what they're getting. All right, what about all that other stuff the waiver's supposed to do? Well, according to the county administrators, some of you, we've hit up with a lot of surveys. I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry. They're saying that the waiver is having a positive effect on establishing beneficiary access lines, improving quality improvement activities, coordination with healthcare and mental health, and delivery of case management services. So all pretty good. So the skeptical Chihuahua would say, are you trying to tell me everything's perfect? No, it's not. I mean, any time that you try to set up something this complicated, this big, all at once, I think there's bound to be growing pains. So the beneficiary access lines have had that. Expanding medical detox is very difficult because it's not within drug Medi-Cal. I won't get into it. We talked about NIMBY. There's also workforce shortages. Maybe this is the slight downside to a good labor market, low unemployment rates. We have room to grow on penetration rates, but we have a very large population, so that's part of it. Provider level challenges, being able to get set up and needing some startup funds, things like that. There's a lot of need for training and technical assistance. So we have provider surveys out in the field right now. I don't have the analyses for it yet, but there's a lot of people asking for training and TA on a whole array of things. Next up, we're hoping to look at outcomes and cost analysis in particular so that we can answer those kinds of questions that come from the legislature and others. Is it worth it? So returning to this, looking back at what we've seen, I think it's pretty clear that it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It'll probably never be perfect. But is it worth? Are we seeing enough? That's not the question. Are we seeing enough that it's worth the fight? That it's worth all the extra reporting and requirements that you're having to go through? And that really, I think we've seen enough that we can say yes, even if you are a skeptical Chihuahua. So thank you guys. It's been great.
I am so going to use that Chihuahua against you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Darren, for just giving us a little snapshot on some of our key projects and focus areas. Really appreciate that. And next, I am very fortunate and excited to introduce to you Pastor Jim Botts. And for those of you that did not know, it's BYOPTTC Day. Bring your own pastor to the conference. And so, anybody else bring their pastor today? Whoa, you guys didn't get the memo. Well, I brought mine. And really, really excited to bring Pastor Jim forward. He has an extensive history in leading folks in multiple churches and missions work. And what I really love about Pastor Jim is he just has a heart for vulnerable people, and he really has a heart for the people that we serve. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Pastor Jim.
Well, I talk with my hands and my entire body, so I'm not going to be nailed to this podium. I'm going to guarantee you that. Glad to be with you guys today. I just want to let you know that, excuse me, it really is a genuine honor for me to be with you guys today at the outset of such an important conference. Now you might ask yourself, what's a local church pastor doing in a conference like this? And I asked myself the exact same thing. And so one of the things that you need to know is I've been pastoring local churches all across the United States for the past 17 years. And I've been feeling a little bit lately like this turtle on the fence post. If you see a turtle on a fence post, you have a question. You think to yourself, what's he doing there? How did he get there? You start wondering those kinds of questions. And so as I wonder, what am I doing here? And you're wondering, what is he doing here? I want to take just a few minutes and just explain a little bit about how I got here, what I'm doing here, and hopefully why I'm standing here. I'm originally from Chicagoland, where my 3 older sisters and I were raised by our mother, who dealt with our father's abandonment of our family by turning to alcohol. And so we grew up in an alcoholic's home, and by the age of 13, me and all of my other sisters, by the age of 13, we had all developed our own relationship with drugs and alcohol on an everyday basis. And so for us, substances were not the problem. Substances were the solution to every problem. Ours was also an irreligious home. We grew up with no religious training or influences of any kind. And after about a decade of my own personal drug use and substance abuse, I was introduced to a relationship with Jesus Christ, who radically transformed my life. And so from that day, September 26, 1990, to this very day today, I've helped local churches all across this country become places where people like me, everyday people, regular people, not necessarily religious people, broken people, empty people, can find grace and truth and belonging and transformation. Now, I'm here today with my wife, Rose, and we have been married for 28 years. We have 3 adult sons, and we also have 3 grandsons. And I know what you're thinking. Man, you don't look that old. But I do have old hair, that's for sure. I'm also a theological scholar doing a PhD, studying intercultural studies, looking at the question of spirituality and human cultures around the world. And I'm also, as Marlise mentioned, the lead pastor of Green Valley Community Church in Placerville, California, a church which specializes in recovery ministry. And so I'd like to thank Marlise for inviting me here today to be able to share with you guys. And the topic that I want to talk with you about is the importance of spirituality in recovery. I'm going to do that through 4 questions. The 4 questions are going to be, why is spirituality important? What community resources address spiritual needs in recovery? What are the benefits of spiritual programs? And then 4th, how can we access these spiritual programs? So question number 1, why is spirituality even important? One day a father was trying to take a nap on a Sunday afternoon. And his young boy kept waking him up. Have you ever had your kid wake you up and trying to take a nap? And he was like, man, I need to get a nap. So he decided to try to figure out how to keep his son busy. So he went to the newspaper that was on the table and he tore out a page that had a picture of a globe on it. And he tore up the globe in a bunch of little pieces and he handed it to his son. He said, son, this is a puzzle. Put it all back together. Then he went and he laid down thinking, I got at least a good hour nap ahead of me. 15 minutes later, his son comes and wakes him up. Daddy, I finished the map, finished the puzzle, put it all together. The father woke up thinking, there's no way. There's no way he knows geography enough to get all the continents in the right place. No way. So when he came back and looked at the map, sure enough, he got it right. So he asked his son, how did you do it? And the boy said, Dad, on the back of the page, there was a picture of a person. And when I got the whole person put back together, then the whole world just looked right. Friends, in our work in recovery, what are we doing? We are helping to get the whole person put back together. And people, human beings, are more than physical beings. We're more than psychological beings. We are more than emotional beings. We are more than social beings. We are spiritual beings. In fact, if you go back to the Hebrew Christian scriptures, the very first chapter, the very first book of the Bible, you'll find these words, Genesis 1:27. So God created man. The word man there in Hebrew, ha-adam, humanity. God created humanity in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Notice the words image occurs there 2 times. Human beings are the only creatures in all of God's creation said to bear the image of the Creator himself, which means that every human being has equal dignity, worth, and value because they bear the image of God. Every human being, male and female, equal dignity, worth, and value. Every human being, haves and have-nots. Rich, poor, capable, not capable, pleasant, annoying, all made in the image of God. Let me ask you a question by show of hands. How many of you have ever been so hungry that your stomach rumbled and somebody else heard it and it was embarrassing? You ever had that happen to you? Maybe you're in a meeting, right? And all of a sudden your stomach rumbles and you're like trying to keep it down. How many of you, by show of hands, have ever gotten like so thirsty or heard somebody say that their mouth was all sticky and disgusting? You ever heard that before? Isn't that gross? Now here's a universal fact of human history. Cultural anthropologists will tell you. Everywhere cultural anthropologists go, we find every single culture expressing some form of spiritual hunger for the divine. Some form of spiritual thirst for that which is transcendent. So I want you to play along with me for a second. The existence of physical hunger points to the fact that something like physical food exists. And the existence of physical thirst points to the fact that some kind of physical drink exists. Follow along. And the existence of spiritual hunger points to the fact that some kind of spiritual food actually exists. The biblical narrative roots humanity's universal spiritual hunger in the concept that God created every human being in his own image, which means we were all made by God and we were all made for God, and it will only be in God that our deepest spiritual hunger can ever be met. So to the question, why is spirituality important? Here's the answer. Because human beings are innately spiritual. That's why. If we want to help human beings in recovery, we have to address the spiritual component. A 2017 Pew Research study found that 27% of Americans identify themselves as spiritual, but not religious. I get it, man, I get that. But the same study concluded 48% of Americans refer themselves as religious and spiritual, which means 75% of Americans identify themselves as spiritual beings. You know, why is this so important? Here's why it's important. I want to put this up on the screen. According to the Center on Addiction at Columbia University, 16% of the U.S. population ages 12 and older meet the clinical criteria for a substance abuse problem and are addicted to nicotine or alcohol or other drugs. Now, this is 40 million Americans, 1 out of 7. And 3/4 of them admit they are spiritual beings. And so if we want to help the whole person in recovery, we can't just address the physical. We can't just address the psychological or the emotional or even the social. We must learn how to address the spiritual component. In fact, here's a book I would recommend for you. C.S. Lewis's amazing book, Mere Christianity. If you've never read it, I challenge you to read it. It takes a very irreligious look at spirituality. And here's what he said in that book. He said, quote, "God made us, invented us, as a man invents an engine. A car is made to run on petrol, and it would not run properly on anything else. Now, God designed the human machine to run on himself. He himself is the fuel our spirits were designed to burn. God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from himself because it is not there." Question, why is spirituality important? Answer, every human being is spiritual. And those who are going through recovery or have a substance use disorder, they have a spiritual component that we have to address if we want to deal with the whole person. Takes me to question number 2. What community resources address spiritual needs in recovery? Now, as many of you know, the American recovery movement began in 1935 when Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith founded Alcoholics Anonymous in Ohio. In their 1938 book, Alcoholics Anonymous, also known as the Big Book by those who are in the program, outlined the 12 steps of recovery, which have become the basis for recovery programs all around the world today. Now, here's a news flash for you. Listen. The recovery movement is inherently a spiritual movement, because the 12 steps are inherently a spiritual process. In fact, look up 12 steps. 7 of the 12 steps refer directly to God. 7 of the 12. 5 biblical practices occur in the 12 steps: prayer, confession, submission, restitution, and helping others go through what you've been going through. In fact, the 12th step, the culminating step, number 12, says this, quote, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. What am I saying? I'm saying that the success of spiritually based programs like AA deal with the spiritual side of people. It's led to a proliferation of these kinds of programs all around the world. In fact, if you're wondering about good faith-based programs, all you have to really do is go to recovery.org, to the upper right corner, search bar, type in 4 words, faith-based recovery programs, and it'll populate a map that you can sort by state and find out who's in your area. And so what I would like to do in the remainder of my time is I would like to recommend for you one particular program that I have observed for a very long time. A very effective program, and it's known as Celebrate Recovery. Many of you have heard of it. I'd like to talk a little bit about it. Celebrate Recovery was founded in 1991, not far from where we are sitting right here. Lake Forest, California, Saddleback Church started the first ever Celebrate Recovery. It follows the exact same 12 steps of AA, but it applies those 12 steps much broader and much deeper. Celebrate Recovery is a non-denominational program that any church can start as long as they hold to the DNA of Celebrate Recovery. Currently, there are around 35,000 Celebrate Recovery programs in churches around the world, and to date, over 5 million people have completed a step study. And I will tell you, all the churches that I've pastored across the U.S., we've had a Celebrate Recovery program. I have seen thousands upon thousands of lives, not enter into recovery, but have sustained recovery through a program like this. In 1999, the state of New Mexico began testing Celebrate Recovery programs in their prisons. A 2000 report from New Mexico says this, quote, only 13 of 167 people who attended Celebrate Recovery while in New Mexico prison returned to prison after their release. This is a recidivism rate of 7.8%. Normally, New Mexico's recidivism rate is 78%. New Mexico then went on to be the first state to adopt Celebrate Recovery programs in all of its state prisons. And my friends, in August of 2004, the state of California approved and announced that Celebrate Recovery was a state-approved substance programs for its prisons as well. And I'm going to give you a very specific example in just a couple of minutes. We're all well aware. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to become an alcoholic. Yet many develop an alcoholic problem. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to develop a prescription drug issue. Yet many end up with prescription drug issues. And trying to help people by only addressing the physical side, that's like trying to clean a window by only washing the outside. We have to address the inside of the window, and it's not just psychological, and it's not just emotional, it is also spiritual. Which takes me to question number 3. What are the benefits to spiritual programs like a Celebrate Recovery? What are the benefits? And so I want to give you a finding from Dr. G.B. Lyons, who's a clinical researcher. This is from the Addiction Research and Theory Journal, 2010, and here's what he found. Quote, experiential research has shown that the occurrence of a spiritual awakening while participating in a 12-step-based program can increase post-treatment abstinence by 4 times. And that up to 82% of clients who experienced a spiritual awakening were completely abstinent at a 1-year follow-up compared to 55% of non-spiritually awakened clients. What am I saying? Here's what I'm saying, and the data's there. Spirituality is not one component of the recovery process. It is a critical component. And you guys care, so how do we learn to engage that critical component? Now, I lead a church in Placerville, California called Green Valley Community Church, and we've been running our program well over a decade. We have seen hundreds of lives transformed. And in 2016, we were invited to start a Celebrate Recovery program in the California Department of Corrections B facility in Sacramento. This B facility houses 1,200 maximum security prisoners. These are the most dangerous prisoners there. Facility Captain Joe Stewart, along with the facility warden, invited us to come and initiate a Celebrate Recovery program in the facility. May of 2017, 15 maximum security inmates graduated from their first ever Celebrate Recovery program. According to Captain Stewart, the program has since grown from the B facility to successfully spread to all the other facilities at Cal State Prison Sacramento also. And recently, in an email to me, now Joe Stewart knew that I would be here talking to you, and he knew what you guys do, and he knows what this conference is about, and this is what he wanted you to hear. Here's what he said. Captain Stewart concluded, "The dedicated church volunteers proved that regardless of how extremely violent an environment can be, sustainable change can be achieved when it helps change the heart. Changes observed by corrections professionals included noticeable shifts in the facility culture and the reduction in violence at the maximum security facility. I want to encourage each of you to look further into the Celebrate Recovery program." And so what I did was I met with our most tenured leaders in preparation for coming here today and had an hour-long focus group with 4 tenured leaders. All of them have extensive experience in the major recovery programs of which you're familiar, NA, AA, and all the rest. And in meeting with those 4 leaders, I asked them a question, what are the unique benefits of Celebrate Recovery? It's different, it's unique. What are those unique benefits? And we came up with really 3 in terms of their experience. Number 1, Celebrate Recovery is holistic. Most recovery programs will focus on sobriety as your goal. Celebrate Recovery has a larger goal. The larger goal is to address the whole person. Celebrate Recovery deals with hurts, habits, and hang-ups. The hurts behind the habits. For example, anger management, codependency, control issues, resentment and bitterness and unforgiveness. It deals in those larger issues. Also, Celebrate Recovery aims to break cycles of dysfunction within the entire program. Celebrate Recovery has a goal to reach the entire family of the addicted person. So celebration places for children, and the landing is for 12 to 18-year-olds. In fact, one of our leaders said this. She said, CR, Celebrate Recovery, cares about the whole family being healed and teaches you how to love. So we can back up to that last slide for just a moment. The second benefit, first one is holistic. The second one is it's positive. Celebrate Recovery is forward-looking and positive. A tendency in recovery programs is to define the person by their addiction. You ever been to an AA meeting? When people introduce themselves, they say, "Hi, my name is Jim. I'm an alcoholic," and everybody says, "Hi, Jim." But Celebrate Recovery is a different kind of a program. Celebrate Recovery, participants are not identified with their addiction. They're identified by the power greater than themselves. And so at Celebrate Recovery, they would say, "Hi, my name is Jim. I'm a grateful follower of Jesus who struggles with anger or pornography or alcohol or codependency or whatever that is." Celebrate Recovery affirms the dignity and the worth and the value of all people by giving them and sustaining an identity beyond just their addiction. It's holistic, it's positive, and then the third thing, it's communal. In many recovery programs, the work of recovery is done by an individual with their sponsor, but Celebrate Recovery doesn't work that way. Celebrate Recovery step studies are gender-specific groups where the work of recovery is done by a group. And so one of our program leaders, she said this. She said, quote, "Group participants guide and encourage each other, not just one-to-one with the sponsor. With this high level of accountability, the group simply won't let you miss." This is a woman who did not have any kind of a church background, who had all kinds of addictions in her life, who came to our Celebrate Recovery program and just hung out and just got to know people and got into a circle and opened up her life. Now she's the program leader, her and her husband. So the fourth and final question I want to address very quickly as I close is how can we access these kinds of programs? And so here's what I'd like to say. The work that you guys do, it is difficult work. It is hard work. And often it goes underappreciated. You don't always get to see the progress. In fact, more often than not, you feel like you're shoveling pea gravel. As soon as you get one out, there's just a whole lot taking its place. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. The work that you do matters. You are changing lives. This is important work and it's hard work, and we're called to it from the different ends that we come from. But thank you so much for the work that you do. And as professionals, I'm sure that you care about healing the whole person, which involves the spiritual component. So I want to share with you very quickly is how you might be able to access a spiritually based program like Celebrate Recovery. And so I put together what I would call the 3 R's of accessing a Celebrate Recovery. If you want to look into this, 3 R's. R number 1 is research. All you have to do is go to this website, locator.crgroups.info. You'll see a little bar, type in your zip code or your address. All of a sudden, it'll populate a map of all the certified Celebrate Recovery programs in your area. So do the research. Second, reach out. That populated list will have all the leaders' contact information right there. Why not simply email those leaders? Introduce yourself, introduce your program, and maybe set up a face-to-face and get to know them. And then the 3rd R would be refer. Once you make contact with a particular group, why not refer clients or other professionals and programs to them? Why not do that? Why not even create a list of program locations in your area and make it available? You could post it, you could disseminate it in any way that's appropriate to your context and to the needs of those that you serve. Friends, spirituality is not just a component in the recovery process. It's a critical component because human beings are spiritual beings. About 2 weeks ago, on August 4th, 2018, Oscar award-winning actor Sir Anthony Hopkins told an interviewer about 7 words that changed his life. Turns out in 1975, he was on Broadway, and some person took him aside. His alcoholism had gotten out of control and said, if you don't get your alcoholism under control, you will not have a career. So that night, he went to an AA meeting. 1975. He told reporters just 2 weeks ago, a woman leaned over to him and gave him 7 words. Those 7 words put him on a road to 40 years of continuous, unbroken sobriety. Those 7 words are, why don't you just trust in God? Spirituality is not a component. It's a critical component, not just for a person, but for helping the whole person and the whole family and the whole world start to look right again. I want to close with a quote from the most published writer in the English language. His name is G.K. Chesterton. And I want you to turn on the movie screen in your mind, and I want your mind to picture these amazing words of G.K. Chesterton about the most compelling human who ever lived. His name is Jesus Christ. Here's what he said. He said, quote, if I found a key on the road and discovered that it fit and opened a particular lock at my house, I would assume most likely that the key was made by the lockmaker. And if I find a key of such universal validity that it has fascinated and satisfied millions of people in every century, including the best minds in history and the simplest hearts, that it has made itself at home in virtually every culture, if such a key so obviously fits the locks of so many human souls in so many times and places, it must be from the heart maker himself. Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And so this concludes our plenary session for this morning. I do want to make an announcement that for the room G, if you go outside where these curtains are and you kind of go make a little U-turn there, that's how you get in G. And then for the workshop sessions in the back of your program guide, there's a map. So you can see there's some down here in this general area, and then there's a hallway that you go down where there's all the garden rooms. There's nothing this year on the second floor. It's all on the ground floor. So with that, I will see you back here after the workshops for lunch. Thank you.